A group of Madison business and civic leaders recently returned from a trip to our sister city, Freiburg, Germany. What they learned deserves a report, which we'll get next on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. For reasons not limited to size, culture, politics, and food, Freiburg is one of Madison's best sister city fits. But its economic development strategy and urban living philosophy may offer Madison valuable lessons as well, to say nothing of potential partnerships. A delegation of a dozen or so Madisonians, headed by the mayor and including all 6 of my guests this morning, made a fact-finding, relationship-building trip of site visits and meetings last month. A little later, we'll hear from Beth Tryon of the UW Morgridge Center for Public Service, City of Madison Planning, Community and Economic Development Director Steve Cover, and President of Downtown Madison Incorporated Susan Schmitz. But we start with Ted Petit, founder of Green Lake Projects, Otto Gebhardt, CEO of Gebhardt Development, and Chris Gosch, architect and project planner with Bark Design. Thank you, gentlemen, all very much for joining me this morning. Ted, kick it off by telling us about the motivation for this trip to Freiburg, other than the fact that you're a native.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you, Neil. It was very exciting to get an opportunity to actually have a group of business leaders go to Freiburg. We've had a lot of cultural exchange over the last 25 years of our sister city relationship. The relationship between the 2 universities in the towns has predated that by many, many years. As you know, my parents met in Freiburg way back in the 60s, and I ended up kind of being a sister city byproduct as a result. But what's really fascinating about Freiburg is city of 220,000, very strong university research town, leans relatively politically hard to the left, a very nice, compatible sister city for Madison. And what we see there in the last 35, 40 years is they've made a very large investment in green infrastructure. So you have 2 sizable sustainability neighborhoods with very high energy efficient dwellings. You have a lot of renewable energy dispersed throughout town, very strong public transportation system, and just a general constant churning and push by citizens, municipal leaders, and businesses to keep that momentum for green development.
The business delegation was coincidental to the mayor's trip, but planned simultaneously? Was that the idea?
Yes, exactly. We called it BizDel 2013. We knew that the mayor would be traveling over there. As you know, I travel over there quite a bit, usually about 3 or 4 times a year, mostly connected with green energy stuff, whether it's city to city, whether it's with the German American Chamber of Commerce. And what I've noticed over the years, and what really helped us be able to have a meaningful business delegation trip over there, was that the city of Freiburg is very motivated, as we are their American sister city, to help us understand a lot of the advantages that they've found to supporting green and sustainable types of development. It's been an economic driver for them. They've added about 1,000 to 1,100 jobs a year in the past 11, 12 years just in their green energy economy. So it really has value for them beyond a concept of just kind of that do-gooderism that sometimes we have branding problems with here.
Right. Otto, currently you've got the Constellation project up and about to open on East Washington Avenue.
Right.
Then the 800 block is coming next.
Correct.
So what was your interest in going to Freiburg?
Well, we really wanted to put into the 800 block a more sustainable concept. As far as in the United States, it was such a treat to go over, Ted and the whole group, but going over there, you really see, what they're doing to create the sustainable situation. Some of that's because of their fuel, prices of fuel, and are much higher than we have here. And natural gas, we have an abundance here. We want to really show a model of what can be done, make it financially viable. It can be done, and a model for going forward.
And to complement that, Chris, you're working on these projects. What did you learn? What did you bring back from Freiburg?
Oh, that's a great question. We had an opportunity to have some good one-on-one time with designers and planners over there. Ask them very specific questions about problems that we've encountered and their solutions to them. The ability to get the general citizenry to accept excuse me, some of these pretty extensive planning issues, like removing, excuse me.
That's fine.
Removing cars from a neighborhood,
Yep.
which I don't think would necessarily be reacted to very positively here, but to experience it, to see what that lifestyle is, and just how great that is. But in terms of some of the more pragmatic parts of building technology, just to say, hey guys, we've encountered some of these issues here. You've been working on this for a lot longer than us. How did you solve it? And then we were able to really come to some really interesting solutions out of it.
I mean, is this a radical change in thinking, Otto, or is this something that we could incorporate relatively easily?
I think that's the key to the term, and Chris knows more of the details, but the passive house technology is really a very sustainable way of building, but it's very efficient. In the past, during the different oil embargoes and crisis, they came up with solar houses and different things that were very cost prohibitive, and the payback took many, many years. So it really, for the average citizen or the average developer to effectively finance that was almost impossible. This type of technology is very effective and very feasible to do financially in the real world today.
I mean, I've kind of thought, Chris, if people could see this, that it might pretty quickly build a demand. Do you think that's accurate?
Absolutely. The passive house technology that Otto was talking about, that's we can reach a certain threshold with what we're doing. But what was great going over there and talking to these architects and other planners over there is that, hey, you know what? With just a little bit more push, we can meet these same standards. Yep. And really accomplish something pretty interesting.
Ted, I'm going to ask City Planner Cover about this a little later, but just quickly, can you talk about Freiburg's interest in us, in addition to our interest in Freiburg, and what this might mean for a green sector development along the East Wash corridor?
I think it can be very beneficial for green sector development. Part of the Passive House storyline on the 800 block now is that we have a Passive House project partner architect in Freiburg that's part of our working group. And so what you see is the city of Freiburg being very interested in us understanding how these developments work, maybe pushing us a little harder, a little faster than we might normally be able to do ourselves, but also then have that infrastructure and individuals that we can seriously work with on active projects here.
Thanks, guys, very much. I appreciate it. We're going to get some additional perspectives from the city planner, from the head of DMI, and a UW rep right after this. So we're expanding now our report on the recent biz delegation trip to Freiburg with some biz leaders, but also some government leaders. Susan Schmitz, the president of Downtown Madison, Inc., joins me. Steve Cover, who is the City of Madison Director of Planning, Community, and Economic Development, and Beth Tryon with the Morgridge Center, Service Learning Center at UW-Madison. Susan, just strictly from a business perspective, a downtown business perspective, how valuable was this trip? What did you learn?
Neil, it was amazing. Because when you're in a city that has mode share like Freiburg does, 36% mode share biking, 31% mode share of public transportation, 19% mode share for cars.
Tell us what mode share is.
Mode share is the percentage of folks who use those means of transportation for moving around.
Yep.
Okay. So in comparison, we're about 7% mode share for bikes, so probably 90% mode share for car, and well, no, probably not quite that much, because we do have a decent amount of mode share for our public transportation, but we only have metro.
Right, bus,
we don't have right. So when you're in a city, you visit a city, or you're just working and moving around in a city with that kind of mode share, it feels so different. The public space is different. The uses are different. I mean, their downtown is so vibrant, It is cars are not allowed in their downtown except for exceptions, but it's for pedestrians and bicycles and the trolley, which is real easy to hop on and off. And they have 610 businesses in their downtown.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a single vacancy. So it's different. And so that's why when you can visit a city like that and really experience what it's like, oh, this is different.
Sure.
It's just different.
Sure. Beth, help us apply this to your work.
Well, so the transportation is one of the modalities that we teach students about, and this program came about a few years ago as a result of our relationship with Freiburg, that we began taking undergraduates over to look at what we call Green Summer Freiburg, and then bring that information back here. And the first time we went in 2011, we took 15 students. They studied the transportation grid, they studied the passive house technology in the high rises. It was like, everybody was a kid in Disneyland for them because they all had sustainability interests. They came back here and started giving presentations to the City of Madison Sustainability Engineering Task Force and all over the city and on the university campus to kind of create this energy around the idea that this is our sister city, and yes, Germany has some different economic and government policies that have made it easier for them to become the most sustainable city in the EU, but it doesn't mean that we can't emulate them in some areas and try to do better. This generation of college students that I'm working with right now, I've never seen kids any more committed to sustainability. It's really cool to take them and see the city through their eyes.
Steve, I saved you for last because I'm just kind of assuming that you're seeing this through the development eyes. You're seeing this through the business community eyes. You're seeing this through the UW's eyes. And kind of wrapping it into whatever thoughts you have about how this influences your thinking as the City of Madison planner.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Freiburg is that they know how to maximize the activity in their downtown area and create great public spaces. Throughout the city, you walk around and they have these wonderful plazas where there's a mix of cafes and fountains and kids playing in the water and things like that. And I think those are some real takeaways here that we can bring back to Madison. And I mean, Madison has some great spaces too, but I think there are opportunities to create more of those. I think also too their whole green building technology and their research in solar and alternative fuels. I mean, that was a real big takeaway because I think we can do much more of that here in the city of Madison. And I think the 800 block project is a perfect example that really could be a role model for future development here in the city of Madison.
Yeah, we heard, I think it was Chris say that that the idea of a car-free zone in Madison might be a little difficult, but would it be impossible if and I'm just going to throw this out there, but and it's not, I'm not using this, but the Union Corners, for example, if that developed in a way that maybe cars were excluded from that, is that completely out of the realm of possibility?
No, it's not. It is possible, and I think one of the interesting things that'll be coming up here in the city of Madison is we're just now going to be starting our transportation master plan for the whole city, and not just the downtown and the isthmus, but for the entire city. And we're going to be looking at some very innovative, different approaches to how people can move around the city, and that certainly is one of them.
Yeah. You said something, Beth, that intrigued me. Is this, does this feel like a formal relationship that the university has with Freiburg? I mean,
it is quite formal. There's a program called Academic Year in Freiburg, which pulls from UW-Madison, Michigan State, University of Michigan, and University of Iowa. Every year they send a combination of up to 60 students from those 4 universities to Freiburg. That focuses a lot on learning the German language. So I don't know how long it's been going on, but at least 50 years or more. Because of our interest in sustainability, we started to insert this idea that we could have shorter trips and have the students be learning specifically about the sustainability topic. So it's kind of an add-on. These students don't necessarily speak German. It's hard to find a multidisciplinary group that are all fluent German speakers, but in general, we're able to take 2 or 3 along each time that are good enough in German that they can actually do some translation and stuff like that to bring back here. It's really super exciting, and they hope to be involved in the 800 block because the UW is a project partner in time, we'll be donating around $60,000 worth of student hours every year so that students can be giving tours to the public. Say somebody walks in the door of this place, they don't know what it is, what's in it, then we'll have students staffing a kiosk that can show them the things that are happening. We'll have students doing research projects on the sustainable materials in the building.
We're going to talk more about what all this means going forward when we come back right after this. I'm back with DMI President Susan Schmitz, Madison City Planner Steve Cover, and Beth Tryon from the UW. 3 of the delegation that went to Freiburg in June. So I'm just, I want to start thinking about how this could influence our thinking, and you know, not to dwell on negativity, Susan, but as you know, the city hasn't always been particularly embracing ideas from other cities.
Sure.
I remember Sue Bauman being beat up for using Paris as an example of scale. But that's, you know, there's been some of that here. Is the business community in particular thinking about the possibilities for these types of global influences and how we do things here?
I think so, because the business community or whoever, and in particular, of course, my organization, is interested in creating great spaces. I mean, that's what cities and neighborhoods are about, are great spaces, spaces for people and families, et cetera. So to go to a city like this and see what it, fast forward, like, what could that look like? You're there and you're thinking, wait a minute, we could work on some things to create greater spaces, and if it means that, and not being anti-car, but if it means that maybe we have park and ride lots outside of a certain area and then people can walk in or take trolleys in or whatever, it's like, yeah, we could do that, because if it's about great spaces, there's going to be agreement about that. So hopefully nobody gets beat up about great spaces.
It's called multimodal transportation, right?
Right,
It's not
absolutely.
either or. It's blending things
Correct.
together. I asked Ted about this, Steve. The idea that just as a piece of the economic development strategy for this city, that Capital East corridor along East Wash could be a place where the green energy, sustainable energy, renewables. Sectors sign up, so a variety of businesses, both here and maybe some foreign offices. Is that part of your thinking? I mean, is that possible here?
Absolutely. I think the East Washington district is already going in that direction. We're seeing businesses that are kind of a different kind of business starting to move in there. It could be our green building, our green technology sector of the city. Personally, I think it's going to be one of the hottest areas in the city for the next 15 or 20 years. There's no doubt about it. Not only from a business standpoint, but just quality of life, a different kind of living, and I think it's going to wind up setting a different standard here in the city as to what urban life can be. I really do.
A fair amount of the energy is coming from young entrepreneurs and startups. Not all of them are from the UW, but a lot of them are. And it just seems like maybe it's expanding the campus a little further east. I mean, do your students give you indication of that? Yeah.
Absolutely. They're hungry for opportunities to get out into the community and try to make a difference because they love Madison. And whereas we're not a medieval city, like Freiburg has the distinction of being, we've got beautiful lakes, and the students really care about the lakes and the fact that there's bike paths and the terrace and things that they are proud of. They envision being able to visit this center on East Wash and actually draw people in to their world on campus more and have this green bridge that's not only going across the isthmus, but it's going across the ocean. So I know there are often people who say, oh, that's Europe, we can't do that here. We can't do everything that they're doing, but we can do some of it, and they would really like to see us try. Freiburg cares about Madison. We're so lucky to be their sister city. There's a lot of towns in the U.S. that would kill for our position, we better take advantage of it.
Yep. I've talked to the mayor just briefly, and all I can say is that he seemed pretty pumped about it. But if you could put words in his mouth, Steve, how would you describe the mayor's response to that trip?
He was so excited when he got back. The first thing he did is he sat down with his senior leadership and said, "This is what I'm bringing back from Freiburg. This is what I want to do, and that's advance our green building technology, look into alternative fuel vehicles for the metro system and our fleet. Of course, eventually expanding to the city, and we've got our assignments, and we're moving forward with those." So,
I mean, it's interesting because we know Paul's interest in safety and in neighborhoods and that kind of stuff, but I get the sense he saw in Freiburg some possibilities for Madison.
I think he did. He really did. You couldn't not. We all saw it. There were some great opportunities. And again, as Steve and Beth have both said, we don't have to be exactly like Freiburg, but we can learn from them and learn from some of that, the great planning that they have done and how they have embraced the alternative energies and transportation options and multimodal, as you said.
Something that would really resonate with Mayor Soglin is that they've gone to redoing their public housing in the passive house mode, meaning that it saves 90% of the energy bills.
Yep.
So they have a skyscraper for people with cognitive disabilities who are on government assistance. So who better to save money on their utility bill than people who can't make a lot of money?
Yeah.
We could do that here. We've got to redo a lot of our public housing anyway. Why not make it super energy efficient, save everybody money?
We just have a minute left, but I think Susan's right, Steve. This is, and we have to say this because the public pushes back a little. This isn't about being Freiburg. It's not about being Austin. It's not about being Portland. It's not about being Denver. It's about taking examples from those places and incorporating them into what would be a uniquely Madison vision, right? I mean, that's your challenge.
yeah, that's exactly right. And the more we get out there and the more we visit, I think the more ideas we can bring in and see which ones apply to Madison. Because Madison has so much potential above and beyond what it has right now.
Yep.
We've already got the cheese, sausage, and beer.
Yep, that's
And the lakes.
something to build on. All right, thank you guys. We're not heading down that
Thank you so
direction.
much. Yeah.
We'll be back, wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to everyone for being here today. We'll see you next Sunday morning for another For the Record.